All right, away from the disease that is COVID, I did mention that we are discussing post-cancer treatment syndrome. And joining me to have that conversation, I'm joined by Professor Ronald Wasike. He is a breast surgeon from the Aga Khan University Hospital. Daktari, can I call you Daktari or Prof? Which do you prefer?
Whichever.
Either is fine.
Yes. No
Good to have you with us this morning. We're also joined by Anne Kiburi. She is a caregiver. Anne, good to see you this morning. How are you feeling?
Good. Good morning.
All right, good to have you with us, Anne. And sitting not too far from Anne, we have Beatrice Musyoka. She is a survivor. Beatrice, how are you feeling?
I'm very fine, thank you. Good morning.
And we're glad to have you as well. Joining us virtually is Lola Wanjiro. Lola, can you hear me? Yes, she smiled and she said yes. But we'll sort out her sound so that you can hear her as well. All right, Daktari, allow me to start with you. What is post-cancer treatment syndrome?
Usually when patients come through diagnosis of breast or any other cancer, they are then allowed to be treated. And after going through the treatment, which might involve surgery, chemotherapy or radiation therapy and others, it takes a while. It might take 6 months to 1 year to treat them. Most of them will be expecting to finish their treatment and go back to their life. Unfortunately, a few of them after treatment, they have a lot of fears. And those fears vary from individual to the individual, and they might include fear of, now the doctors have let me free, I don't know what to do, I've been being pricked every day, being checked, done imaging and all that, now they're saying go home, what do I do? And the main thing is that they fear that they might get a recurrence. And they also fear that they will not have that attention and support that they've been having through treatment. So that combination of all feelings and all that is what we call post-treatment syndrome.
Okay, so why it's not a disease, it's a syndrome. It's a distinction.
It's not a disease. It's, when you're talking about a syndrome in medicine, you're discussing a combination of either complaints, imagined or real, physical, psychological, mental, that affect the patient's welfare. Yeah. Okay.
So it's not like a mental disorder?
No.
All right, so there is a distinction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Beatrice, if you can hear me, I'd like you to come in at this point. What was your experience like after you had completed treatment?
Okay, thank you, Olive. I finished treatment not a while ago, and actually finished treatment in mid-June, and it has been a very wonderful journey, I would say. It's been a smooth journey, looking at the fact that I had very good doctors, I had very good support system, and the working from home really helped me also to make sure that I manage the treatment. So post that, I have recovered very well, and I feel very confident that I'm healed, actually. Looking at it that I'm only like 3 months after treatment, I feel like I am totally back into my normal health, and yeah, going forward, I believe that cancer is defeated. Thank you.
Say amen to that, Beatrice. But I think I got ahead of myself there first. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with cancer? When were you diagnosed? What kind of cancer did you have to fight? Did you suffer from? And how long were you in treatment?
Yeah, I was diagnosed in October, mid-October actually. I took the advantage of the cancer month. That was last year, 2020. And I decided to just take some routine screening. I had actually never gone for any screening, but this time round, I felt like I needed to. But a week before I went for screening, I looked at I saw some red patch, which looks like an insect bite. And after that, I got a bit curious. On touching, I felt a lump that was actually very quiet. It wasn't painful, it wasn't moving, it was just there quiet. And I got into Mr. Google. Mr. Google always the best to guide us through. And all indication was tending towards malignancy. And from there, I felt like I really needed to do this screening as soon as possible. So a week after, I went for screening, and the ultrasound was indicating some suspicious lump. Then after that, I went to do biopsy, which turned to be to be cancerous. Yeah, from there, I went direct to Professor. Professor Wasike was my surgeon, and he's actually a very good surgeon. And the fact that he managed to do the surgery and I had some clear margins was an indication that he had removed all the cancerous cells from my body. So that was a success factor number one. I felt like I was already healed, and whatever other treatments that were coming after that were just preventive. So I felt like I was healed. I would say that through the journey, I did 8 cycles of chemo. I also did 25 sessions of radiotherapy, and now I'm on hormone therapy. That is a tablet, tamoxifen, for another 5 years. And it is a sweet journey. I feel like I've overcome. I feel like, you know, I'm a warrior and I'm victorious.
That's really good to hear. So it was caught early?
Yes, it was caught early at stage 1. And this is all because I managed to do the screening early.
Okay.
Because actually the cancer, the early stages, you can't feel it, you can't notice anything. It's a silent killer. Like, it is just there in the body doing nothing, but it is really killing you silently. So early screening was what saved me.
Okay. So before we hear from Lola on her experience, and let me bring you in at this point. For many people imagine, and I mean, Beatrice has the most positive attitude, and I'm so glad that there was a positive outcome. But Anne, many people imagine that once you've beaten the cancer, you have no reason, I mean, that you're done. Now you can go on about living your life as normal. Is that always the case with cancer survivors?
Thank you, Olive. It's not always the case. There's a lot of anxiety on the patients, because once a patient is diagnosed with cancer, then first they receive an information overload. And that is, they get information about the staging of the disease, they get information about the treatment that they're supposed to take, the side effects of the treatment. And so they put on like a fighting armor. And once they go through the treatment, at times they struggle to put down the armor, because now they've been in this stage of fighting. So they don't know what time to drop. And then there's a lot of anxiety and lack of information on what's next. Because then, like, if you've been working, you're wondering, at what point should I go back to work? Like, is it 3 months after the treatment? And then there's the test also that you take after the treatment, which most of the time now the patient is anxious. What is going to be the outcome? And post-treatment, you find that still some of the patients have some side effects that they're still battling, and they struggle on which doctor should I see, because during your treatment, then you had the oncologist, whereby every time you had a side effect coming up, you'd call the oncologist, consult on that, and get some way forward. But right now, you've like cut the line with the oncologist, and you're not sure now when you see something, who do I talk to? You don't know, do I go back to the surgeon if it's something around the scar? If it's something in the body, do I go to a GP, or what do I do? So you find that also, even as much as like there's information on Google, there's not much information on coping post the treatment. So you find the patients face a lot of anxiety, and even with the support system, you find that most people will have a supportive system around them during the treatment. But once the treatment has stopped, like most of the people who are supporting them tend to back off, like go back to their normal lives, and there's no one there with you day to day. So that creates a lot of anxiety, and at times even can lead to loneliness.
Interesting. So, Prof, Daktari.
Yeah.
You talked about the fear of recurrence.
Yes.
As being the predominant concern among cancer survivors.
Yes.
What other fears? When people call you after they've completed their treatment, what are the other things that they're concerned about?
So there is, for example, in the case of my friend here, Beatrice, she's a young lady, as you can see. Mm-hmm. Together with Lola, for example, Lola, when she first came, she was still a nursing student at 21. There are many things they want to achieve in their life. They want to get babies. They want to feel good about themselves. Luckily enough for the two of them, I didn't remove their breast. So most of them fear losing part of their body that almost is a good body image if you lose your breast. So both of them, we did breast conservation surgery successfully, and that's why they also underwent radiotherapy to make sure that the recurrence is reduced. So there is apart from the fear that cancer will come back, there's the fear that will I get children and raise them up? Mm-hmm. Will I get other complications related to surgery like lymphedema? How is my fertility? How is my chance of getting other cancers? Mm. What do I do exactly? So we have a program, for example, in Aga Khan, whereby we have a follow-up every 3 months initially when you finish you complete your treatment, mm-hmm. and after that every 6 months, and for a long time every year, because both of them also are on tamoxifen. I think Lola has finished because Lola's surgery was some 7 years ago, but for Beatrice she will continue to take tamoxifen for 5 years. So we want to follow them up and do some tests that make sure that there's no recurrence. Both of them had stage 1 disease, and when you're dealing with early breast cancer, stage 0, 1, and 2, the aim of treatment is cure. Mm. So as far as we are concerned, and as far as they are concerned, they're cured. Even for Lola, luckily, she's gotten a baby after treatment. And I'm sure if Beatrice wanted to get a baby, she will get, because she's still young. So those are some of the things, like lymphedema, fertility, secondary or recurrence of cancer, and then the survival support, and what we do. So we continue with screening, and Beatrice mentioned screening. I think for all cancers, early detection is very important, whether you're talking about breast cancer, colon cancer, or prostate cancer. Because all those cancers, when they're picked up early, one of the things that happens is that even the treatment is more conservative. For example, even the surgery is not very aggressive. And also you're able to eliminate all the cancer cells at once because they haven't moved. They have not gone to the lymph nodes. They have not gone to other organs. So literally, what we are saying is that people should go for screening. After 40, all the women should go for screening for breast. And after 45, all men should go for colon and prostate screening so that the disease is picked up early. If you notice anything, for example, early enough, a lump or change in skin or shape of the breast, or if you have a discharge, bloody discharge from, say, from the bladder or urine, from your nipples, you should quickly pick it up to see a doctor. And now that we have enough centers for cancer, it's good to see an oncologist so that you are treated or you are detected early and cured from the disease.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we work on getting Lola into the conversation, Beatrice, let me come back to you. Did you suffer any body? I know you're a beautiful woman, I have to say, inside and out. And inside, they say, because I've interacted with you and your positivity is infectious. But did you suffer any body image issues, any concerns about your fertility?
Yes, Olive. I had quite a number of side effects. Some were a bit worrying, and the biggest side effect that I had to struggle with was the immunity levels. And due to chemo, sometimes the immunity levels can really run low. And for me, I had cases even at 0.3, which is really low. And amidst COVID, this was actually kind of a very dangerous level of immunity. So I had to make sure that I was totally locked in the house. I couldn't make any movements. I couldn't get visitors or anything like that, which sometimes could lead even to loneliness. But thank God to my support system that was always there for me. Virtually, they could even take some turns to come and see me, even if it is one person, have some duties to come and bring supplies and all that. I would say I really survived that through my support system. I also had quite a bit of darkening of the skin, but I used to dip myself, almost literally, dipping myself inside oil. Like I used to apply oil, layers of oil, so that I make sure that the skin doesn't get too dark or too dry. I also used to hydrate a lot, sunscreen. Those are some of the things that really helped cope up with the side effects of the body. Another side effect that I'm still struggling with is actually acidity. I usually get a lot of acid reflux. To a point, I'm always feeling so full. I don't want to eat. But knowing that I also have to, I have to make sure that I keep well, I have to make sure that my diet is very well managed. I have to be sure that I have to keep on eating well, so I have to push the food in. Even if it doesn't go in, sometimes I even do the blending, because it is a desperate situation whereby you have to keep your body always at the pace with a treatment. So whatever goes in is very important. So you have to make sure that you keep a balanced diet. At that point, sometimes the nausea does not even allow you to eat well and all things like those. But the blending really helped me so much, because, I could just close my eyes and, yeah, just do the sips, and that was it. So it really helped me a lot. Another side effect now I'm dealing with is also the nerves. The second cycle of chemo affected my nerves so much. Currently, I'm actually on medication for nerves, which is improving slowly. Some of these side effects some take 2 months, some take even longer, 6 months, or even some a year. And we have to cope with it. The most important thing is that you've accepted whatever comes, and you want to try and make sure that you're looking at the positive side of it. As you can see, I used to have a very beautiful hair. It all fell off completely. My head looked like the face. It was a bit worrying, and I really felt devastated to see my hair fall off. But of course, with that positivity, I decided it's not the end of the world, and I'm liking my new hair. It's very easy to manage, and yeah.
I'm liking it too. All right, and if you could come in at this point, many times when we are discussing breasts, people think this is a woman's issue. But men too, doctor, if I'm not mistaken, can get breast cancer. So, Anne, what do you find, have you ever interacted with a male patient who suffered from breast cancer? And what usually do you find are their concerns post-treatment?
Thank you, Olive. Yes, I've interacted with a patient who had male breast cancer, and that is my father. So you find for the male, first diagnosis most of the time happens a bit later, because they are not used to the tendency of examining, because breast cancer is associated with the women. So even like during this month, when there are a lot of campaigns around doing self-examination, you find that the male do not have an interest to try and learn how to do the self-examination. So for most of them, by the time the disease is getting detected, it's a bit at a later stage. So they struggle through the treatment, and post-treatment, you find most of them have a lot of questions, mostly, especially wondering why it had to be them. And they start feeling like, you could feel like you're getting a female disease, so to speak. And they have many unanswered questions. And I've actually seen that for the male gender, then it is even easy for them to get into depression post-treatment.
Why do you say that? Why do you say, why is there a sense of shame associated with it?
Yes, there's a sense of shame, and even when you look at the support groups, most breast cancer support groups consist of women. And so it is very difficult for the men to join these support groups and blend in and share their experiences. So you find when it comes to fighting breast cancer, the male tend to be like isolated. They really can't speak freely about the disease. They don't have many of other male who have suffered a similar disease, because you find maybe the other men have suffered more of prostate cancer. And they are shy. They're shy to sit in a group of women and start discussing breast cancer. They're also shy to go for counseling, because when they go for the counseling, if it's a group counseling, then it consists of more women than men. So yeah, they shy away, and I think they feel like they're more stigmatized. Yeah.
Okay, so Anne, did you get into caregiving on account of your father?
Sorry, say that again.
Did you get into your line of work, that is as a caregiver, on account of your experience with your father?
Oh, okay, thank you, Olive. Yes. I'd like to state that I'm actually not like a professional caregiver. I'm not in the medical space. I have just been a caregiver based on the fact that I have had my father who had breast cancer, and now I have my friend. I have been caregiving. I've been taking care of Beatrice while she was going through her treatment and up to this point.
Ah, okay. But, I mean, it must also be difficult for you, because you're going through this experience with somebody. And I mean, Beatrice sounds so upbeat, but of course there must have been low moments. She talks about facing devastation when her hair fell out. How do you keep your spirits up so that you also don't bring down the person for whom you're caring?
Thank you. Yeah, when you have a patient, the first thing, you have to be very careful with the information you give them and the way you approach things, because cancer is not a death sentence, but you find that the way society perceives it, it is very easy to end up having someone stigmatized. So you have, first, if you have a patient who is positive and has a strong willpower, it really helps a lot, because it helps when it comes to discussing their eating and their side effects and trying to support them. But also when you're with them, then you need to be very careful about the information that you're sharing with them, because at times you can have bad news around, but you have to be very careful. Like, I remember when Beatrice was undergoing her treatment, she had she lost her mother, and that was a very difficult time, because already the treatment drains you, the diagnosis also drains you, and you find that the patient is very vulnerable emotionally. So any form of bad news can easily make the patient give up on the treatment or feel like they're losing hope. So you really have to keep encouraging them. Additionally, the good thing that we had was that there was a religious person who was also part of the support system. So if the patient has some faith, it really helps, because then the religious person can come in and support and create some hope for the patient.
Okay.
So they are very emotionally vulnerable. And any bad news, you really have to be careful on how you share bad news. You really have to be a source of positive energy. And we were lucky we had many friends around Beatrice who were really full of positive energy and were really always encouraging her, even with the eating. Because as she's saying, the acid reflux was a problem. At some point when she was undergoing the chemo and the radio combined, then there was one point the throat was almost like blocked. She had a sore throat that she could really not eat. And you have to even have an hourly check on her. So one person calls, another person calls, like that, until you really make sure that she has taken something that particular day. So okay. You really have to be, if you're going to be around a patient who is undergoing treatment or even post-cancer treatment, you really have to be there only to encourage them and not to bring them down.
Okay. So we need to take a break in a short while. I don't know, will we be able to hear from Lola Jackie? Okay, so we're still working on that. But when we come back, we'll hear from Prof. Daktari Ronald Wasike on, is there a protocol that addresses the post-cancer treatment syndrome? All right, we come back with that.
Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, we offer free delivery within the same day? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can open an account and lipa pole pole at your convenience? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can get customized sizes according to your roof plan to avoid wastage? Call us now on 0111 050 700. Ruiru Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
Kuwa smart na ujaribu Zenka 0% loans for first-time borrowers. Zenka, smart loans for smart people.
I'm growing into every moment. So
nurture the moment. Minute Maid Nutri Defenses, fortified with vitamin E and zinc to help improve your defense system.
NTV Jioni, habari za kina, fasaha, tendeti na za kuaminika.
What should be done to enable teachers to lead and innovate, and how do we encourage teachers to do this?
The most important thing is to put in place continuous capacity building in a more comprehensive way.
If we are able to avail the devices, and if we are able to bring the cost of internet down, we really are able to engage this student.
Also being trained enough for the 21st century, now that we are even going to the CBC.
If you're not willing to be that teacher who is a lifelong student, then some of these things might look impossible.
Do join us at 4:30 p.m. on NTV Kenya.
Habari wa Kenya, naitwa Tony Ndiema. Kupata wimbo wangu wa Jugiokelo kama sikiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *851 hash. Skiza na Nation, supporting local talent.
Because of his great love, he gave his only son. Everything was done so you would come.
To get his great love, dial *812 *806 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Lucozade, energy to get through it.
Thank you for staying with us on Your World, and we're fortunate now to have Lola able to speak to us. Lola, I have to say your smile as well, as Beatrice says, is infectious, and I'll get to how you keep so upbeat in a bit, but first perhaps you could share your experience. Daktari told us you were quite young, 21, when you were diagnosed with cancer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. So my name is Lolandi Rango. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 21. I was in school. I was a third-year student. I was doing my nursing. So it was a incidental finding, I may call it, because at that time we were doing, it was in October when they found the lump. We were doing the checks. So later I found the lump. They did a fine needle aspiration where from that they picked there was nothing wrong with the lump, but after the fine needle aspiration, the lump started to grow very fast. By December, it was kind of big, protruding from the skin, it was distorting the image of the that breast. So I was advised to do a biopsy. So they did a biopsy. I went for lumpectomy, whereby they took part of that lump and did a biopsy. The biopsy results came in as lobular carcinoma in situ. No, invasive lobular carcinoma, sorry. So I was sent to Prof. Wasike in Nairobi. It came as a shock because I did not accept the results there and then because I was too young. So I thought it was a mistake because the first one had come in. So it was easy for me to accept the results of the first diagnosis. But when I was sent to Prof, he at the same sitting, he advised we do a CT follow-up immediately, where we did CT of the chest, abdomen, and pelvis, and there was no metastasis. So he advised we had to act very fast. And the following day, I was taken to theater. The results came the same: invasive ductal carcinoma with staging and with grading. It was grade 3. So I had to go for chemo, and so the lymph nodes were also partly removed. So after healing 4 weeks, I went for chemotherapy. So the chemo was, I did 5 cycles of chemo and 25 sessions of radiotherapy. Yes, during chemo was kind of, it was not easy for me. So I lost my hair. Something, I thought I would lose my hair after maybe the 4th chemo or something, but I lost my hair after the 2nd chemo, and my skin was dark. The good thing was that I was in school then, so I was busy. I was just coming from Nakuru to Nairobi for treatment, going back to school. So that kept me busy a little bit, and I was quite quite encouraged because my friends, I had a support system back in school, and they kept me busy with games, schoolwork, assessments, and practicals. Also, my lecturers were quite supportive at that time. So I really did get a support. So it went by that most of the things that I could have been, if I could have been isolated, I would have felt, were really felt afterwards. That's when I realized, oh, my hair fell, my skin turned. But after some time, after the chemo, during the radiotherapy, the skin had started coming back to its normal pigment, and also the hair had started growing. So that was it. After radiotherapy, I was started on hormonal therapy, and during this period, the tamoxifen, I was taking tamoxifen. It gave me a lot of hot flashes. So I quit 2 times, by the way, but I was encouraged to continue with it. So, because I had read some information about the hormonal therapy and also the effects of chemotherapy, I wanted to I wanted to try my fertility, which it took a while, like 1 year to conceive, but eventually I did. I thank God for that every day. So during I had to stop the therapy for some time. No, I did conceive on my therapy, so I had to stop after I conceived on the therapy. So that was a bit careless of me because I was not supposed to. So during pregnancy, when I stopped the therapy, I after delivery, I did exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. Then I went back to the hormonal therapy. The thing with hormonal therapy is that it gives you hot flashes and mood swings. I had very bad mood swings. I literally almost sick for psychiatry review because I could react not very well. I had an issue with the hormonal therapy. It was not taking me so well, especially the hot flashes and the mood swing. I also like the reactions also tainted my friendship. But after I completed the hormonal therapy 2020 last year, August. That's when I did. And I just went back to my normal self after like 6 weeks even. The hot flashes are no longer there. I can lay in bed and cover myself with a blanket very well. Then I didn't used to because I just had this feeling. But after 6 years, now this is the 7th year, I'm grateful. I have a 4.5-year-old, and I've been okay. So I would say the support system during my treatment was the main pillar for me, because the support, at least I can say I was busy, number one. I had love. I enjoyed the love and support from my friends and care that came with it. And now after the 6 years, what I am seeing that's coming out more, because I had lymphedema after the surgery. I avoided during this time, I avoided using my left side. So I have avoided using my left side, especially carrying things and stuff. So my right side, it's like it has some kind of, it's like I have the overuse of the right side. So I would advise people, at least they get maybe physio consultation so that they are able to use both sides without getting the lymphedema. Because now after the lymphedema, you get phobia from that. So the phobia makes you protect that side, the arm and stuff, because the lymphedema is usually tough because you have like pins and needles. It affects also the nerves. So from that you get the overuse of the right side, which is not so good, because the muscles sometimes they weaken. You're not able to do, and then you have the spasms. Okay. But that is dealt with physiotherapy, and with time you get back to your normal routine. But you have to keep it a routine so that you don't get lymphedema and you don't get overuse of one side. Okay, all right. Lola, I'll come back to, did you have any fears as far as your fertility was concerned? And congratulations on the baby. Is it a he or a she? I know they're 4.5 years old, but still, congratulations on that. Dr. yourself and Lola have a medical background, so you understand what lymphedema is. For those of us who don't understand, what is it?
So in the body we have three ways actually, the way fluids and nutrients are delivered. We know that the heart supplies oxygen and food through the arterial system, and then whatever has gone to the tissues comes back through the venous system. However, there's some kind of nutrients like fat acids and others that can be not carried in blood by their very nature because they will cause clots. So you have a lymphatic system. It carries fatty acids for nutrition, but also carries defense cells, particular defense cells, the T cells, because we have two systems of defense cells, the humoral that is produced in the bone marrow and carried in blood, that produces antibodies, and then we have the T cells that fight things like HIV, coronavirus, and many other like TB, long-acting infectious diseases. So the lymphatics they are carried from all parts of the body, as you would imagine, just the way venous and arterial blood is carried. Now, if the channels that carry that lymphatic are blocked or they're interfered with when you are doing surgery or radiotherapy, then they will be impeded in flow of lymphatics, and that leads to retention of the fluid or liquid that makes the arm or that part of the body to swell. That swelling that arises from lymphatic blockage is called lymphedema. Yeah.
But how does it relate to
breast cancer?
Yes.
Because we did surgery in her armpit where the lymph nodes are, and the lymph nodes are the ones that are connected by lymphatics. So when you do that surgery, it interferes with that circulation. And also when you do radiation, also interferes with those lymphatics. And that's how they find that they get lymphedema. And that happens particularly if you're overusing that site, or if it is injured, or if you're injected. And that's why we tell patients you should not overuse it unless it's done by physiotherapy and in a particular way. So you are shown how to handle it. And as she says, if you don't use that arm or that part of the body, then you'll lose your muscle, because muscle only builds up. That's why that guy was exercising in the morning, showing you how to use your muscle. You can build it. If you don't use it, then you waste it. So she's right. You need to get the physiotherapist telling you how exactly are you going to use that arm and what to avoid.
Okay, so this is one of the concerns associated
with
post-treatment.
In fact, it's one of the major concerns, because the solutions are not very straightforward. Sometimes you need to do some. Actually, with the current modern surgery, what we are doing now is to anticipate it early. So we make sure that we save as many nodes as possible. We take the least amount so that that lymphatic drainage is maintained. Number two, if you're anticipating you're going to take more lymph nodes, then you can implant. You can identify the lymphatics and avoid them, or you can implant lymph nodes from elsewhere so that they can support that system.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And let me bring you in at this point. 5 years on hormonal therapy, yes, and the side effects that Lola has told us about, the hot flashes, not being able to lie comfortably under blankets. She's also mentioned mood swings, drastic mood swings that she felt she might need to seek professional help with. That's a long time to be dealing with these side effects. And is it you or Dr. Yu who said that usually when you're fighting the cancer, you have quite the robust support system. But many times after that, people say, okay, they're over it, and perhaps fall by the wayside. What do we need to keep in mind? Well, I mean, in terms of post-treatment, as caregivers, as loved ones, as friends.
Thank you, Olive. Yes, you see that after the aggressive treatment, most of the patients will be put on the hormonal treatment, and that doesn't mean that this treatment doesn't have any side effects. As Laura has said, you can see there is hot flashes, and for me as a caregiver, then you really need to continue supporting these patients. Check on them from time to time on how they are taking their medication, because as Laura has said, then it seems that there's a tendency for most of the patients to give up along the way because there's no one who is checking on them. So when the hot flashes and all these other side effects become too much to bear, then they give up on the medicine. Then remember, this medicine that you have to take it every day. So they really have to be disciplined in taking this medicine, especially the younger ones maybe who are living on their own, they don't have anyone they're living with, or maybe even the elderly ones who don't have anyone to monitor on a day-to-day how they're taking their medication. So the support really needs to be there, and there needs to be someone, as I said, once now they're on the hormonal therapy, they're not seeing their oncologist on a regular basis like with the aggressive treatment. So they're more or less on their own. They just need to go and get the medicine from the pharmacy and continue taking on a regular basis. So the support is really needed, and my encouragement would be for these patients to really continue with the support groups, to join support groups and remain in those support groups for as long as they can, because as long as they're in those support groups, even if they get encouragement and motivation to continue the treatment, and they also serve as motivation to the others maybe who are going through the aggressive treatment.
Okay. And Beatrice, do tell us, how do you feel when you hear, Anne has raised the question of support groups and how important they are. When you listen to Lola and her experience, she had cancer before you. Does it encourage you? Does it help to hear what she went through because you're experiencing it, or rather you experienced it for the first time?
Well, from what Anne is saying about the support group, it is a very important component in cancer treatment, not just in cancer treatment, but in any ailment. You need to have people around you to give you hope, to encourage you. And that support group actually is the one that really contributes to the better part of your emotional healing. And so for me, I would say my support group was really, really on top of the game because they came in a very big way, even making sure that they did some part of counseling. They made sure that I ate well. They made sure that I followed even my doctor's prescriptions to the letter. And this is very important, actually. So Lola, there's no giving up in medication. So yeah, we've taken it and we have to take it faithfully like food. It's actually like part of my meals now. About the side effects, I hear Lola about the hot flashes, the mood swings. They'll always be there, and you really need to have very understanding people around you because you can easily annoy people. And I think caregivers also need to go through some kind of counseling and things like those so that they also understand what these patients are going through, and they also try to understand them and also give them the necessary support. So in terms of the support system, it's really, really important, even for these people who are around the caregivers, around the patients, to go through some kind of training and awareness so that they give their best to their patients, because that's what they need.
Okay. Lola, you mentioned losing friends to the mood swings?
Hello?
Yes, you mentioned losing friends to the mood swings?
Not really, because I think they understood. They understood eventually, because in the beginning, most people don't get the people you meet on the way after maybe diagnosis and treatment don't get to know your past history. So they along the way, maybe they just take you as you are, and they get to understand the type of person you are. But eventually also learn yourself, to understand yourself, and also understand the environment around you. So basically, my good friends, my real friends stay. I still have them to date. So, and that is something I am happy about. At least I don't get to regret some, I don't regret the things I did then, because I was just being myself.
Okay. And to those who have family members, friends, loved ones who have gone through cancer, would you encourage them to maintain that level of support that they did when you were going through the treatment?
Yes, it is very important to support someone who's going through cancer, whether it is from diagnosis, from the stage of diagnosis, all the way to even after treatment, because you know, there is always that fear of recurrence, and which mostly comes in when you have the checkups and stuff, but you still have to go on with your life. But the support system comes in as a major pillar for anyone who is going through treatment, because you see some of the things you can't do on your own, especially when you're during the treatment, the chemotherapy. You need support. At least you need someone to be there to. Sometimes people don't have appetite, so you need someone to be there to help you, to encourage you. When you're having low moods, you need someone to encourage you. You need friends around, because you see the support system, apart from supporting you emotionally and physically too, they are also a big part of making you understand that life has to go on. You have to be at your best. You know, you have to plan your future, because it's not the end. You're going to get the treatment, you're going to get better, and you still go to plan your future and make it to your destiny. So that's usually a very big part of your because when you don't have friends, you usually feel like, are they giving up on me during this fight, or how you don't. I think people react differently. There are people who withdraw, but mostly I've found that even if someone is withdrawing from you, it doesn't mean they don't want you there. Most probably it's just because maybe they want some time to themselves, and it is maybe a part of the acceptance. It's a part of the journey to acceptance. So you have to be there, even if you're having a patient who has cancer of the breast and they distance themselves emotionally. It is your duty, maybe as a caregiver, to bring them back, to show them there is life after that, after the treatment, to plan with them. Because if you stop planning at that moment, it's like you're giving up a reason to fight. So you have to have that reason, and the reason is usually your future, which is usually very bright.
Okay.
I'd say that.
All right, and just a reminder to our viewers that do share your thoughts with us. The hashtag is new normal. We are compiling your feedback. All right, Dr. There's something that Anne raised, and she said when you're going through your treatment, you know who to go to, your oncologist, if you have a question. But post-treatment, she says sometimes there's that lack of clarity. So I suppose my question is there a protocol when you're handling patients, once you've completed their treatment? Do you walk them through some of these things? Is there like a document that guides how you deal with a patient once treatment is completed?
I think that as medical people, we should come up with a post-treatment protocol. But otherwise, generally, you know, when you're treating patients for cancer, it's a long-term relationship. So, as I said earlier, you'll need, number one, that you're going to see them. For example, after surgery, you see them every 2 weeks initially to check on the healing. And then you start seeing them after months. And after they have healed, if they require chemotherapy, then you send them to medical oncologists who are going to follow them for 6 months or 8 months, depending on what chemo they are getting. And after that, you go for radiation therapy if you have done breast conservation, like in the 2 of them. And then they are followed up by radiation oncologists for 1 or 2 months. And most likely they will either come back to the surgeon or back to the medical oncologist, who is supposed to follow them up every 3 months initially for at least 2 years. And then after 2 years, every 6 months. So it's not that we leave them to go and just suffer on their own. Then after that, for the rest of their life, because they still have breasts and all that, until maybe they're 85 or so, they'll be followed every year for screening, for checking if anything is coming up, and just to say hi to each other and see how you're doing. So that protocol is there. But for the patients who have now cured or healed, they need to do at least 3 things. Number 1 is that they must live and eat well. Why should you eat well? The reason why you need to get enough nutrients that are relevant is because some specific nutrients have what you call antioxidants, for example, fruits and vegetables. So we make sure that at least you have 2 to 3 cups of vegetables a day, and colored vegetables, and also you have at least 3 to 5 fruits daily. Why is it so? It's because most of those have those vitamin C and other antioxidants that are going to fight the radicals released by, for example, tamoxifen, and reduce those side effects. And if there are any cancer cells forming also, those will be, because cancer cells form because of inflammatory process in the body or stress. And since the antioxidants from the nutrients are going to cut out those, then the chances of even recurrence is low. That's number 1. Number 2, you must exercise regularly. Why should you exercise regularly? Because when you exercise of any kind for 30 minutes a day, for 5 days a week, or at least 150 minutes a week, then first you cut down your weight, so you are not obese. Number 2, exercise generates feel-happy hormones. They are called endorphins. And so generally, people who exercise feel better about themselves because of the hormones, but also because of the way they look, because they have no overweight, they are not obese, and when you're not obese, you're feeling good. So exercise is very, very crucial. The third thing is sleep, which we really underestimate. A lot of us underestimate sleep, particularly after many years of life, 40 years and above. Although I know when you're 40, you think you're young, but most people have no sleep at all. They just go work, watch movies up to 3 a.m., wake up, sleep 1 hour, and then they go to work. And then so they hang around with sleep. If you don't sleep enough, what you do is that you generate a lot of stress hormone called cortisol. And cortisol impairs the metabolism in the body. And it also impairs your immunity, the natural killer cells, which are able to kill off cancer cells before they form and regulate you. So good nutrition, exercise, and at least 6 hours to 8 hours of sleep daily. It's not easy, particularly for professionals and people working. But if you exercise, you get tired, and so you sleep. So they are related. If you don't overeat, you'd also get enough sleep because you're not polluting or something. So those 3 are integrated. Then the other very important component for the patients who are surviving or people who are surviving is to get involved actively in volunteer work, be part of the community, be part of the support group, look out for the people who are newly diagnosed and talk to them, share your ideas and get more ideas. So you're actually completely integrated in this system and you're actually contributing. And why do people feel good in life? They feel good in life when they are contributing at any level, where you're contributing to your family members, to your country, to your community. So those are the things that needs to be done post-treatment to avoid post-treatment symptom, particularly psychological and mental. For the physical ones, of course, like infertility concerns, then we have doctors, for example, in Aga Khan, who see the patients just before the surgery to say, for example, if you're 35, if you're 40, can we harvest your eggs and freeze them? Because you can freeze eggs for 20 years. So that you don't give the patient that worry of that maybe after treatment I'll not be able to conceive. And as I said, for recurrence, you just get followed up frequently by your doctors to check whether there's anything developing.
Is it the radiology treatment that causes the concerns about fertility? Or
No, it is mainly chemo.
Okay.
Chemotherapy kills fast-growing cells. That's why it takes off your hair. It makes your nails black and makes your mouth difficult to swallow because the cells lining those areas, they are fast-growing. And cancer cells are fast-growing. Now the eggs, they are also fast-growing cells because that's why you shed them every month. So it can hit them so hard that if you're not careful, it might be able to wipe them out. And then that you might lose your menses or early menopause because the hormones and the cells that produce them are not adequate. So it's mainly chemotherapy.
Okay. So the concerns you raised were about recurrence.
Yes.
Concerns about lymphedema.
Yes.
And also
infertility.
Infertility.
And
sexuality.
Yes. And how you feel about yourself. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So so primarily those four?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Beatrice, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Okay. So, do you have any you've talked about the body image concerns you had. Dr. says you're still young. He's hoping, or rather he's optimistic that you can conceive, just as Lola did. Do you think there are enough conversations around this issue of what happens post-treatment? Because when you're in the midst of the cancer fight, you know, you're focused on that goal. When it's over, did it now hit you what you've gone through? Was there like a shock or, you know, just how did you feel now when you're out of the thick of it?
Yes, Olive. I remember the last time I visited my oncologist. That was last month. And he told me that my tumor marker levels were okay now. I'm good to go. I asked him, so what's next? Because I did not understand now, am I clean? Am I clear? Am I good to go? Am I healed? What is the next step? So, and I asked him, so am I going to take another test or that's it? So he told me, no, you're fine. Now you're fine unless you need to come back for another test. I told him, yes, I will need to go a PET scan just to be sure that I'm all good. And he told me, fine, come after a month. So you realize that after the treatment, there's a lot of confusion of what is supposed to happen next. And people get worried about these side effects and the long-term effect on them. For example, the fertility. Many people tend to think that you cannot conceive after that, which not necessarily the case, because the time I was diagnosed and I visited some oncologists in Aga Khan, they told me, first they were very positive and they gave me a lot of hope to tell me that your cancer is a good cancer if there's anything like that, meaning that it is treatable and it is the easiest to treat. And they told me one of the things that they would do was to do ovary reservation or preservation if I really wanted to conceive. Thank God I have my two handsome boys, so that is chapter closed already. But for those who still want to conceive, I would say that it is still possible, as Professor said. You only need to discuss with your doctors on the best way of making sure that you can conceive later on.
Okay. All right. Anne, if you could come in at this point. The cost of treating cancer is a major concern. I believe in one of the reports, that was highlighted by Professor Anyang Nyong'o, and there's this talk of universal healthcare. But falling ill sometimes can bankrupt you, can erode your savings. And like I said, I imagine when you're in the thick of things, you're just focused on, you know, just getting past the treatment. How have you found that people, once you're off, once you're primarily done with the aggressive fight, and how do you find people responding, reacting to the challenges that come up as a result of facing cancer?
Thank you, Olive. Yes, the treatment of cancer is expensive, and there are many hidden costs that are not indicated, like they're not on the face of things, because you will get the fees, the medical doctor's fees and the hospital fees, which are indicated, and those ones you're able to pay. But there are other costs. For example, when you're undergoing now the chemotherapy and radiotherapy, you really need to adjust your diet. You really need to eat a lot of nutrient-rich foods, and we know that most of these foods are not cheap, because at times the doctor might recommend like you eat things like the Greek yogurt. We all know that the Greek yogurt available in the market is not cheap. So you find the patient has to really put in a lot of money to be able to sustain these food budgets, and for them now to try and boost the nutrient levels in their body, which now ends up boosting the immunity and making you be able to handle the treatment better. So this is a very expensive affair that most people don't talk about. For the hospital fees and the doctor fees, they're also not cheap. Happy that there are many facilities now coming up in the country, and we hope that this cost will go lower. I can indicate, like for Beatrice, she has a good employer, Kenjen, who was able to pay all these medical fees. But to still see that she had to dig deep into her pocket for the food cost and for other support things, which now the friends would come in and support. But post-treatment, as I said, you find that now all these people who are bringing you groceries are no longer dropping those things to your house. There's no one sending you money to tell you buy something, buy some juice, buy some meat, and all that kind of support. Like, as she indicated, the nerves issues. So you find that most of the time you're recommended to eat salmon to help with your nerves. And you all know how much salmon is in the market. So you find post-treatment, as Prof has indicated, you still have to continue with a very healthy and nutritious diet. And this still remains expensive to the patients. And most of them end up being left like a bit dented on the financial side.
Mm. Okay, we take a break, but we continue with the conversation. I will have feedback from you on the other side.
Get the best value for your money by subscribing today for Classic Bouquet at only 899 shillings for 30 days to enjoy 64 channels. Classic Bouquet. Premium content on Star Times. Subscribe today.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Did you know that Mudokinjo Paints and Cement delivers cement countrywide for free? The hardware deals with paints, cement, waterproofing and decorating sundries. Mudokinjo has 17 branches across the country. Mudokinjo delivers reliable, accessible and affordable building materials that are used within all residential houses, factories, office and public buildings for the purpose of decoration and protection.
Shopping guide. Set a budget. Don't shop when you're tired, hungry, lonely, bored or upset.
Glovo. You order, we deliver in minutes.
Get unlimited free deliveries for food, groceries and Glovo party orders. Subscribe to Glovo Prime for only 300 shillings per month. Terms and conditions apply.
It's cashew nuts harvest season here in Tanzania. This time, farmers are trading the product on the free market, unlike in 2018 when the government intervened and deployed the military to buy the product directly from farmers in order to resolve a dispute over prices. But what does this mean for the farmers?
This is the Kuche Dam in the Eastern Cape. And the water here is at its lowest level since the dam was built in 1967. And it's just a stark indication of the drought that's plagued this area.
The experts are saying that we will have less frequent rain, but when the rain comes, it will be more intense.
Wow, thank you for your time. How juicy.
Juicy.
Juicy fruit,
juicy fruit.
Ni super poa kuvaa barakoa. Ni super poa kuvaa barakoa. Je, unajua kwamba mtu yeyote mwenye umri wa miaka 6 au zaidi anaweza kuwa superhero kwa kuvaa barakoa? Ndiyo kabisa, anaweza. Kama hujafikisha miaka 6, usijali. Wewe pia unaweza kuwa superhero kwa kuwakumbusha ndugu zako na wazazi wako wavae barakoa zao. Kuvaa barakoa kunasaidia kujilinda wewe na kuwalinda wengine dhidi ya virusi. Ni super poa kuvaa barakoa.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
All right, thank you for staying with us on Your World. Cancer remains the third leading cause of death in Kenya after infectious and cardiovascular diseases. Patients still struggle to finance treatment in a country where the cost of healthcare is extremely exorbitant. These issues had been discussed at a forum that brought together patients and survivors. Gertrude Burge has more.
Magdalene Muchindi is a cancer patient from Kimakiu in Makueni County. Diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, the treatment journey has been long costly.
Kufanyiwa mammogram walipata fibroid noma na wakaniambia hiyo fibroid noma lazima wanataka information ya ni nini iko ndani juu inaweza kuwa kuna kitu iko ndani, so wakahitaji kutoa tissues wajue ni nini. Sasa kwa wakati huo sikuwa na pesa juu kutolewa hizo tissues, alikuwa anaitisha 18,000.
According to a survey, 8% of Kenyan households experience catastrophic health expenditure, with out-of-pocket payments pushing more than 1 million Kenyans into poverty.
The biggest pain has been seeing the financial burden of cancer patients in our country. And I think it was very well illustrated by one of the cancer survivors, the burden of cancer. And we know that actually a cancer diagnosis is the fastest route to poverty.
With less than 20% of the population enrolled in National Health Insurance Scheme, financial barriers remain a challenge in accessing care. Then there is a shortage of well-equipped facilities.
Ministry of Medical Services, and here I realized that our insurance institution was called National Hospital Insurance Fund. It's a very pathology-oriented name, National Hospital. You only insure people once they are in hospital. You should insure them even before they get there. So I proposed that it be called the National Health Insurance Fund. And it has taken long.
We've been able to establish radiotherapy in 3 out of the 10 centers. Mombasa, Garissa, and Nakuru.
These deliberations were canvassed during the launch of a book titled Shadow in Perpetuity, detailing tales of triumph and tribulation in the cancer treatment journey. The book is authorized by Professor Nicholas Abinya, a lead oncologist in Nairobi. Gertrude Burge, NTV. Magdalene Muchindi is a cancer patient from Kimakiu in Makueni County.
All right, Magdalene Muchindi, that patient there from Makueni that Gertrude mentioned. And we also had from that report by Gertrude that the fastest route to poverty sometimes is a cancer diagnosis. What issues do you take away from that report? And also, given your experience, what recommendations might you make?
So for a very long time, treating cancer of any kind has been very, very expensive. And as Professor Nyang Nyong'o says, the insurance that we've been using, the National Hospital Insurance Fund, has not been very efficient. It's also bedeviled by corruption. You know, most Kenyans, particularly the ones who are working, young and old, are corrupt. That's the truth. Because we have cases of National Health Insurance Fund being robbed by both the workers at the headquarters and the doctors. They put in very fake claims. And they also deliberately make sure that people who can access it can't access it. But things have changed. Things are moving very fast. I think under the leadership of our current president, the aspect of universal health is actually gaining traction. You saw 2 days ago, he was in Kenyatta University at the new hospital, where the minister said that people walk in and out with National Health Insurance or National Hospital Insurance Fund without additional treatment or additional funds. And this also has been made possible that everybody now has to contribute, because the more people contribute, and if the government can close that loophole of corruption, where the money, there's a lot of leakage and drainage of money by the officials and the medical people, that is going to save our people. If we don't do it that way, cancer treatment, I don't think that you can do it of any kind with less than 2 million. And the question is, how many Kenyans can afford 2 million for treatment? There are very, very few. And that's why that person who said the quickest way to go to poverty is by getting cancer treatment. It's true. So we need both the private insurance to collaborate very closely with the NHIF and make sure that patients can go through, because it's an expensive treatment. Nobody can afford it individually. Even the people who are rich, by the time they complete, they will be very, very poor, extremely poor. So we need to change, and I think the government is doing it, but as Kenyans also, we must take responsibility. When we are given responsibility to take care about national funds that take care of patients and other things, we should be able and respectful enough to deliver what we have been requested to do. Otherwise, there's no other way. There isn't another way.
Yeah. All right. Let me come to you, Beatrice. And Anne talked about some of the even post-treatment expenses that come with having survived cancer. What's been your experience? She says you had a very considerate employer, but are you still suffering some after effects, financially speaking?
Okay. From my personal experience in terms of the cost of financing my treatment, let me say that, as Anne mentioned, I have a very good employer and very well covered. So I really didn't get into so much financial problems in terms of financing my treatment. I remember at some point I exhausted my cover, but then again, there was no that space, because what my employer does, they can give an allowance for you to take more cover or take more, finance you more up and above your limits for as long as you can pay later. They can give you a work plan on how to pay that, which is really, really a very good thing. And thanks to my employer, I can't have any better. You see that many people will not have the same privilege to have access to this finance. So as Professor said, the insurances, the NHIF, and even the government need to come in very, very strongly in terms of making sure that these treatments get a bit affordable to everybody, because now cancer does not discriminate. It cuts across all levels: the rich, the poor, the young, the old. So we need to have a very good financial system that supports these treatments. Going forward, as I said, I'm still on tamoxifen. It's not a very expensive, or rather it is relatively cheap tablets, but there are others that you realize that they are more expensive depending on the type of cancer that you're being treated on. That is the post chemo and post radiotherapy. You still find that many people are struggling to pay for their long-term treatment, because it's not the end. Also the checkups and all that. You find that visiting the hospitals, and I think oncologists are also not very cheap. You find that you visit an oncologist, they are not paid as the GPs are paid. So there's quite a need to close that financial gap in terms of treating cancer. But for me, it was really smooth in terms of financing my treatment through my employer, through my family and friends.
Okay. And should you have any questions for our panelists this morning, I see there's a telephone number on the bottom of the screen. Jackie, is it possible for people to call in with questions if they have any? Okay. All right, so if you have any questions, you can reach us using the telephone numbers on your screen. Lola, what was your experience, financially speaking?
I didn't have the money to do the treatment, so during that diagnosis, raising the money for biopsy, because I was in school, I was given by a relative. So during treatment, when I went to see Professor Wasike, when he suggested of the PET I do the CT scan, I did not have the cash to do it, and my parents were not able to afford the treatment. So Professor Wasike wrote to a welfare organization, and that's where I got the funding. So the treatment cost itself was so expensive for me to afford. So the welfare is the one that came through for me during the treatment process, and also evaluation after treatment. But now, after the treatment itself, after the doing the tumor markers and the scans, after evaluation, after that I had to do hormonal therapy, which was also, because I remember I was buying a tablet at 30 shillings. So that was like 900 shillings a month. And NHIF came through during this period, but I could feel the burden of going back and forth to NHIF. Sometimes they could decline outwardly to purchase, to approve those medications for me. Then I also had an issue, especially during this year, the PET scan. NHIF will not cover for me the PET scan, so I had to go in with my insurance as an outpatient. And you know, the outpatient insurance cover is not, that is from my employer, is not much. So when you do the PET scan, it means that, and I did it early this year, it means that the rest of the year you will not have much in your cover to cater for the remaining months. But God has been good. The financial burden, apart from the treatment itself, the follow-ups, you have to pay consultation, which is which is not, it's a bit expensive. It is expensive. And after every 6 months, you do ultrasound or mammogram, depending on the age, and also to top it up on the scans and the CT scan, and also the medication itself. So the financial burden is there. I wish if the gap would be closed by maybe our National Hospital Insurance Fund, and also like Professor Asike said, also the in collaboration with the private sector and also our public, national public hospitals and provincial also, it could really help, so that at least that burden is not borne by the patient alone. Because I used to look at the receipts that the welfare used to pay immediately after the chemo, and I could tell, like, if this was to be paid by my parents, this would have been completely a different story. And yeah, that it was really not easy. It wasn't easy to travel back and forth. It was also very expensive because the care was in Nairobi, and I used to be I used to school in Nakuru. So that is also another gap that need to be closed. At least we get more of care spread to places like Nakuru, Mashinani. That's what I mean.
Okay. All right. Dr. part of what Lula raised earlier was, and I think Anne addressed this, but I think I should also pose it to you, was a question of hot flashes when you're on the hormonal therapy, and also we spoke about freezing eggs as an option. So how does somebody cope with those symptoms? 5 years is a long time.
Actually, we are recommending for very high-risk patients for 10 years. There are some that are going to be on hormonal therapy, depending on your risk status, for 10 years, not 5 years. So there are those challenges of hot flashes, mood swings, and all that. But it varies from individuals to individuals. But the important thing is to remain focused on the future, as Lola said, and on a bright future, and that one day this is going to come to an end.
But how can about early onset menopause? Yeah,
but it's not, hot flashes don't equal early onset menopause. It's just one of the side effects of tamoxifen. But what is tamoxifen? Tamoxifen is a hormonal modulator. So your female hormones are kind of, their effects are reduced on what they have on your breast and your uterus, so that cancer doesn't come back. In that process, then they make your hormones not to be optimal in function. And that's why some people, not all of them, will experience hot flashes like they are reaching menopause. But even then, when they're still on those hormones, they'll still get periods. So that's still ovulating, and they can still get pregnant when they're still on those. So you still have to use family planning methods that are non-hormonal. Because once you get breast cancer and you go on hormones, whether we are using contraceptives that are hormonal, or after that, if you go to post-menopause hormonal therapy, you're putting yourself at a higher risk of recurrence or a second cancer to the remaining breast or the other breast. So hormonal contraceptives is a no-no caution for those who have had breast cancer, and post-menopausal hormonal therapy is a no-no caution for those patients who are survivors for breast cancer.
I think it's important that you repeat that, Dr.
I repeat it.
Repeat it.
What I'm saying is that once you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, then you're not going to use Femiplan, you're not going to use Depo-Provera injections, you're not going to use Norplant or Yasmin or any hormonal-containing contraceptive for family planning. And also, when you reach menopause, you are not a good candidate because that increases the chance of getting second cancer on the same breast if you have done breast conservation, or on the other breast if you use post-menopause hormonal therapy. Yeah, so it's because you are from outside, you're introducing more hormones that already know that we already know that they are going to increase your chances of developing breast cancer. Yes.
And Dr. I wonder, you were in the fight with Beatrice. They're in the front lines.
Yeah.
You were in the fight with Lola.
Yeah.
And you get invested in the outcome, I would imagine.
Yes.
How do you cope?
One of the things, actually, a lot of people ask me, I think my biggest challenge, and they know it, that my patients who are, I have thousands of patients from 2009 or 8 up to now. My biggest challenge is always when they come and I have to tell them now, you know, Beatrice, you have breast cancer. That is the greatest challenge I've experienced up to now for many years. Telling the patient that you have breast cancer when the reports have come, because it varies a lot. Some people just say, what do you mean? It can't be me you are talking about. And why me? I mean, and I think you are wrong. It can't be breast cancer. So that is really the challenge. But with the counselors around, because you cannot cheat them that you have cancer. You have to tell them. Somebody has to tell them. And it just happens that you are the one to tell them that. Usually I ask them 2 questions. I have 2 pieces of news. I have bad news and good news. Like for them, they came early. It was all breast cancer. I know that the outcomes are going to be good. But the bad news is that they have cancer, which for most people, the word cancer equals a lot of question marks. It puts a lot of question marks on how you're going to cope in future. So that's the challenge. How do I cope as a person? I like exercising a lot. I do like, I go to Karura Forest at least 4 to 5 times a week. When I speak to those trees and the monkeys and I hear the waterfalls, I think it kind of really helps me. And then I know that if you do the right thing, the patients have a very good chance of being alive. I tell them we're all going to die one day, but we're not dying from this cancer today. So that is, for me, I think that is how I cope with it.
I like that.
Yeah.
We're all going to die one day, but we are not going to die from this cancer today.
No.
I really like that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to invite my panelists to make their closing remarks. Beatrice, I'll start with you. They say hindsight is 20/20. Given what you've been through, yourself and Lola were diagnosed both in October. I don't know whether that is coincidence or just because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But given what you've been through, for anyone watching, anyone listening, what message would you like to leave them with?
Okay, thank you, Olive. What I will tell the viewers is that cancer is actually a mind game or a mind disease. I remember when I went to see Professor Wasike for the results, biopsy results, and it turned out that it was cancerous. What he told me was that 90% of my healing was mindset. So actually what I would tell my viewers today is that cancer treatment, 90% is usually based on your mindset. Remaining positive, and Olive, I thank you, you notice that I'm always very positive about it. You have to know that this is not a death sentence anymore. It is actually, it is a syndrome, a symptom, as a professor mentioned, and it is easy to overcome. And I usually say that cancer is not what kills. It is the side effects that kills. And if you're able to manage the side effects very well, including your mindset, then you're ready to win the game. For me, it was nothing but a mindset. In addition to the, of course, experienced doctors, Professor Wasike and my oncologist, Dr. Vijay, and also the support group, the MPSHA group, cancer group, my friends, my family, all these people, it is a team, it is teamwork. So you need to have those team players very, very intact so that you're able to beat this. It is doable. You can actually be free of cancer but your mindset is the key thing. And don't forget that we also have God. Your faith is also very important. I remember when I was diagnosed and throughout the treatment, I used to have my priests always come to pray for me every other Friday. And yeah, you don't also leave your faith behind and your God behind, because it is it's a combination of all those that I have mentioned. Okay. Exercise is very important, as Professor said. Make sure that you do a lot of exercise, eat good food, balanced diet, sleep, and also make sure that you live a normal life. I was told that you don't have to deny yourself anything out of the, because you're suffering or you've gone through this. All you need to do is that make sure that the things that you're not supposed to take, you just don't take them. Abstain from smoking, those kind of, the common things that we know even with other diseases like diabetes and all that. So most important is to live a healthy life and live normally. Live normally. It's not a sentence. It is just a phase. And post-treatment, then we are free of it, so we should interact with other people normally like any other normal person.
All right, Beatrice. And I have to say you're an encouragement to many. I was just scrolling through my notifications, and Cyrus Mutiso says, and may God who is in heaven continue to see you through your life, and you will be an ambassador to many. God bless you. Lola, how about you? Let's say if we could keep it to about a minute, what are your concluding remarks?
I agree with Beatrice that your mind is a very big part of success in the treatment process, because it drives your thought process drives your next step. So how you think about or what you think about and how you go about it is very important. So in addition to that, I would say that it's during diagnosis and during treatment, it is a normal feeling it is okay to feel low, and also to say what is really going on in your mind, to talk to identify someone who can encourage you, and especially if they have gone through it and they have been successful in their journey. Having a support system is very important. A good support system that doesn't judge, it's also very important. And I would say that, like I said earlier, continue planning for your future. Believe you'll have one, because by that you are able to strategically identify means to conquer or be a conqueror at the end of it all. Okay. Encourage yourself to understand yourself during the treatment and also after diagnosis, so that you are able to identify the things that don't go with your normal routine. Okay. You're able to identify this is maybe a low mood and this is what I need to do about it.
Okay.
And above it all, during that period, have a relationship with God, because it's at that period you are able to watch out for things that really matter, whether it is from friendship to your decision making. It really matters during that time. So your relationship with God, pray about your life, get people, like Beatrice stated, she had people who would pray for her every Friday. That is very important, because they also come in as a great support system and also as your pillar.
All right,
and they encourage you in that matter, and they know you know you're not fighting alone in that battle, and God is with you.
Thank you for that, Lola. All right, so that we also give an occasion to Anne, very, very quickly, what are your last words on this subject?
Yeah, thank you, Olive. My last comments on this will come in form of a challenge. first to the nutritionists in the country, that we are able to map out foods that have various required nutrients for cancer patients, because you find what is the information available is mostly on foods that are mostly Western, and we have a lot of foods that maybe could support this journey. So the nutritionists need to do that. To the financial institutions, maybe they can come up with products to support cancer treatment, loans or other facilities that can be used. And my last challenge is to all of us. We play a big role in supporting cancer patients. Let us be there. As I said, I'm not a professional caregiver, but I've been able to take care of cancer patients. Provide time, be there with the patient, go and see them while they're undertaking their chemotherapy, sit with them for 3 hours. That's good enough support. Pray for them, make a call to someone you know who is suffering from cancer. It goes a long way. Pick a bunch of spinach or carrots and drop them at the door of someone who's undergoing treatment. It also goes a long way.
All right, thank you very much for underscoring those points and for us. Dr. A, if you had to leave us with one thing, what would it be? And this one I'll add 3 varies. Very, very, very quickly.
Okay, so I think I've mentioned them before. You realize that Lola and Beatrice picked up their problem during the cancer months. So we should not wait for DOPA. We should not, all of us, women and men, go for screening every month, January to December. Because when we pick it early, the results are good. So screening is key. Number 2, live an active life, good nutrition, and great sleep. And then have good friends, friends of value, not friends who take you to smoke, not friends who take you to drink too much alcohol, and not friends who take away your money. Thank you so much for having us. I think that's what I want to leave with the viewers.
Right. So good friends who take you to exercise.
Yes.
Not drink and
the ones who take you to Karura. Yeah.
All right. So and just quickly, Dr. What age should we begin screening?
It's a self-breast examination start at 20.
Okay.
Mammographic screening is after 40.
All right. There you have it. That was our conversation on the new normal. Thank you very much, Professor Wasike. Thank you very much, Beatrice Musyoka, a cancer survivor. Lola is also a cancer survivor. She joins us virtually. And Anne Kiburi, who is a caregiver. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.